Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I am going to be taking a special look at one of the most iconic and legendary bands in the history of the jazz fusion genre, and they were a huge part of that movement back in the 1970s with other great bands such as Mahavinishu Orchestra, Weather Report, the Headhunters, and many other great bands of that time who were starting to embrace more of a rock approach to the jazz music. And it's featured some of the biggest names in the history of music, and they were led by one of the greatest and most celebrated, decorated, legendary and respected pianists slash keyboardist slash bandleader slash composer of all time. I am talking about, of course, the one and only Chick Corea, and the legendary band is, of course, Return to Forever. So Return to Forever was formed in 1971 after Chick Corea's stint with Miles Davis, and the first incarnation of the band featured Chick Corea on piano and Fender Rhodes electric piano. It featured Stanley Clarke on acoustic and electric bass, Airto Moeria on drums and percussion, and his wife Floria Purim on vocals, and Farrell on saxophone and flute. And that incarnation of the band, which was the first one, released 2 albums, the self-titled Return to Forever on ECM, and the second album, Light as a Feather. And the music was very much Latin, Brazilian sort of oriented style of music, with Floria Purim bringing more of a operatic sort of vocal range to the music, and they made some serious noise, and that incarnation of the band made some very legendary music. Not my sort of thing, of course, but I give mega props to Chick Corea for wanting to experiment with more Brazilian sort of Latin-driven kind of music. So after Airto Moeria and his wife Floria Purim left the band, and Farrell would leave the band as well, there would only remain Chick Corea and Stanley Clarke, who were both from Stan Getz band, and of course, as I mentioned already, Chick Corea played with the legendary Miles Davis. So the band would start to embrace more of a rock sense to the music, so they would kind of move away from the Brazilian Latin sort of style of music and start to go down the more heavy jazz rock sort of driven music that other bands like Weather Report and Mahavinishu were starting to do, and got very popular in doing so. So this would bring us to the second incarnation of Return to Forever, with Lenny White on drums and Bill Connors on guitar. So for this special edition, I am going to be purely taking a look at the jazz rock catalogue of Return to Forever. I don't have the 2 Brazilian recordings of the first 2 albums, but I'm going to be talking about primarily the classic years of Return to Forever from 73 to 76. And I can honestly tell you, this period of Return to Forever was, without a doubt, their most legendary phase. No bad album here, no weak album, all of them legendary in their own right, and there was a total of 4 studio recordings, and I am going to be talking about each one of them individually, and I'll be choosing which one I think is the best one. So I'm going to start with the first album of the jazz rock era of Return to Forever. And as I mentioned, Lenny White's on drums now, and Bill Connors is on guitar. There was an incarnation before this that featured Steve Gadd and Mingo Lewis, but sadly they didn't record anything. And of course, Steve Gadd went on to become a huge, mega in-demand session drummer in his own right, and one of the most iconic of all time. So we're going to start with the first album of the jazz rock era of Return to Forever, and this was released in 1973, and this is Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy. So Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy features Chick Corea on electric and acoustic piano, organ, harpsichord and gongs, Stanley Clarke on electric bass, fuzz bass and beltry, Bill Connors on electric and acoustic guitars, and Lenny White on drums, percussion, congas and bongos. Excellent album. This would be the one that kind of kicked everything off, and Bill Connors definitely brought more of a rock range to the music. And as I mentioned already, Return to Forever moved away from the Brazilian-oriented style of music, and they were starting to go full into the heavy electricity of the jazz fusion genre that a lot of bands were doing at the time. So this lineup, although not as iconic as the next lineup that I'm going to be talking about in a moment, but they deserve to be mentioned in the conversation, and this kind of like gave the real balls to the music. So we've got classics such as the title track, Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, After the Cosmic Rain, Captain Senor Mouse, Theme to the Mothership, Space Circus Parts 1 and 2, and The Game Maker. So most of the compositions are written and composed by Chick Corea, with one track written by Stanley Clarke. Excellent album, very underrated, but at the same time very iconic. So let's have a quick look. It's not really much to see, but there you have it. It's a really good album. It's very heavy, rock driven, and a lot of the songs would remain in the Return to Forever set list for virtually most of their careers, and a lot of the individual members would play a lot of these songs to this day. So there you have it. Return to Forever, Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy. Standout tracks for me, the title track, Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, Theme to the Mothership, Space Circus Parts 1 and 2, and Captain Senor Mouse. But every song on here from start to finish is just top notch, and as you'd expect, a true classic from one of the most iconic bands of all time. So there you have it, Return to Forever, Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy. So Bill Connors would leave shortly after, and he would be replaced by, in my opinion, one of the greatest guitar players on the planet, and maybe in the entire universe. And they would record their next album with this guy, and the next 3 albums would be the ones where they built their name and reputation. And the gentleman I'm talking of course, is the one and only Al Di Meola. No disrespect to Bill Connors, great guitar player, but Al Di Meola, he's just a monster guitar player and very highly versatile on both the electric and acoustic guitars. So they would record their next album, and this would be the classic lineup of Return to Forever with Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, Lenny White, and Al Di Meola. Not saying that the lineup with Bill Connors wasn't classic, it's iconic, but you cannot compare it to the legendary classic lineup of RTF. So the next recording that they would release was released in 1974, and this is Where Have I Known You Before? I was just listening to this the other day, and I forgot how fantastic and epic this album was. And it's very typical of the 70s, but you know, all these bands that came out in the 70s or the late 60s, they were so ahead of their time and so well advanced with their music and material. And the music just sounds as fresh as it did the day it was recorded. So we've got Chick Corea on keyboards and percussion, Al Di Meola on electric and acoustic guitars, Stanley Clarke on bass with a bit of organ and percussion, and Lenny White on drums and percussion. One of the greatest RTF albums of all time, and one of the greatest of the jazz fusion genre. So we've got tracks like Vulcan Worlds, composed by Stanley Clarke, Where Have I Loved You Before by Chick Corea, which is more like a solo piano piece, The Shadow of Low by Lenny White, absolutely epic, Where Have I Danced With You Before, another solo piano piece by Chick Corea, Beyond the Seventh Galaxy, so that's kind of like a sequel to Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, which is composed by Chick Corea, Earth Juice, composed by Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, Lenny White, and Al Di Meola, absolutely brilliant. The title track, Where Have I Known You Before, which is again another solo piano piece by Chick Corea. And then we've got the 14-minute epic Song to the Pharaoh Kings. For me, the best track of the whole album. And it sounds more like heavy metal than it does jazz. I mean, there are jazz aspects to it, but it's just something you'd hear from a prog band like Yes or King Crimson, you know, those sort of prog bands that were out at the time. It's just fantastic. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, they are. You know, hard to believe that all these guys were in their mid-20s. And I think when Al Di Meola joined Return to Forever, he was like 19. And just think about that for a minute. And a 19-year-old Al Di Meola playing like that. It's just unheard of and just insane. And in my opinion, no disrespect to Bill Connors or Airto Moeria or even Floria Purim, they helped build Return to Forever. But to me, and all due respect to Stanley Clarke and Lenny White and Chick Corea, they all played their big parts as well. But Al Di Meola, to me, put Return to Forever on the map. And I'd probably say Return to Forever was equally as epic as Mahavinishu Orchestra with John McLaughlin. And, you know, the bands would run side by side for many years. And, you know, Al Di Meola is just quite possibly one of the greatest guitar players on the planet. Seen him live a bunch of times. Unbelievable. So there you have it. Standout track for me, Song to the Pharaoh Kings, the solo piano pieces, Where Have I Loved You Before, Where Have I Danced With You Before, and Where Have I Known You Before, and Vulcan Worlds. Love this album. Was just recently listening to this the other week. Excellent. So there you have it. Where Have I Known You Before? So we come to the next album, which was released in 1975, and this is again another classic from RTF, and one that gets talked about a lot and with good reason, and this is No Mystery. So classic lineup once again: Chick Corea on acoustic pianos, electric piano, clavinet, Yamaha organ, synthesizers, snare drum, marimba, and a bit of vocals. Stanley Clarke on electric and acoustic bass with additional Yamaha organ and synthesizer and vocal. Lenny White on drums, percussion, congas and marimba, and Al Di Meola, of course, on electric guitar and acoustic guitar. This is another classic. And the thing with the classic lineup of RTF, they could do no wrong. They were just knocking out classic album after classic album, and they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've got Dayride by Stanley Clarke, Jungle Waterfall by Chick Corea, Flight of the Newborn by Al Di Meola, Sophistifunk by Lenny White, excerpts from the first movement of Heavy Metal by Chick Corea, Stanley Clarke, Lenny White and Al Di Meola. We've got the title track No Mystery, which to me is just one of RTF's greatest compositions ever. Interplay by Chick Corea and Stanley Clarke, and we've got the Celebration Suites Part 1 and 2 by Chick Corea. Excellent album, one of the most iconic recordings of the jazz fusion genre and of the 70s. Let's have a quick look. Good times. There we go. Brilliant stuff. So, standout tracks for me: No Mystery, Celebration Suites Parts 1 and 2, and excerpts from the first movements of Heavy Metal. Love this album. Again, I was having a bit of an RTF day just the other week, and I was just revisiting all of these classic albums, and, you know, there's a good reason why Return to Forever are one of the greatest bands of the jazz fusion genre of all time. You know, the musicianship, the playing, the composing, everything. These guys were just a tight unit, and to me, they were like the four horsemen of the jazz fusion genre. You know, these guys were just knocking it out of the park, and just an epic band with some epic music. So there you have it. Return to Forever, No Mystery. So we would come to the final album of the jazz rock era of Return to Forever, and this album is considered by many, and with good reason, to be the greatest Return to Forever album of all time. And this came out in 1976. This is Romantic Warrior. So this would be the final album that's the classic lineup of Corea, Clarke, White and Di Meola would make, and they would break up shortly after this, sadly. But boy oh boy, what a way to go out. They really go out with a bang. So we got Medieval Overture, Sorceress, the title track, Romantic Warrior, Majestic Dance, The Magician, and Duel of the Jester and the Tyrant, Parts 1 and 2. What more can you say about Romantic Warrior? It's a classic. Every track is just dynamite from start to finish. I think, in my opinion, the classic lineup of Return to Forever had never sounded better than this album. And it's a real shame that they broke up after this, because I think if RTF had stayed together just a little bit longer, they could have gone on to be even more legendary. And, you know, sometimes all good things do come to an end, but I personally think that this lineup was not ready to end just yet. I still think they had a lot more to offer and a lot more gas in the tank. So let's have a quick look. So we've got Chick Corea on acoustic piano, Fender Rhodes, Hohner, clavinet, Mini Moog, Moog 15, Micro Mini Moog, ARP, Odyssey, Yamaha organ, Polymoog, marimba and percussion, Stanley Clarke on acoustic and electric bass and piccolo bass, Beltry and handbells, Lenny White on drums, timpani, congas, timbalas, handbells, snare drum, suspended cymbals, and even an alarm clock. And Al Di Meola, of course, on electric and acoustic guitars, soprano guitars, hands and bell and slide whistle. Insane. Absolutely insane. What a band. What a lineup. So, there's Chick. There's some more sleeve notes here. But boy, what an album. An absolute masterpiece of a recording. Every song from here, from start to finish, is just top notch. So the standout tracks for me are Medieval Overture, The Sorceress, the title track from Romantic Warrior, and Duel of the Jester and the Tyrant. But every song from start to finish is just epic. What more can you ask for? So the album that I'm going to choose as the best one and my all-time favourite, I love No Mystery, I love Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, I love Where Have I Known You Before, but you just can't go anywhere else but here. Romantic Warrior. Epic album. For me, my favourite Return to Forever album of all time, and quite possibly the band's greatest achievement in their long history. So this lineup of Corea, Clarke and White and Di Meola would break up, and Chick Corea would continue with another incarnation of Return to Forever, and they would release an album called Music Magic, and that would be it. RTF would break up, and Chick Corea would go on to do many other solo projects, and he would, of course, form the Chick Corea Electric Band just over a decade later. And the classic lineup of RTF did get back together in 2008 and recorded a live album called Return to Forever Returns, and I went to that tour, and I went to see that, the classic lineup of Return to Forever. And it was one of the best shows that I've ever been to. It was just absolutely phenomenal. Even though I wasn't around at the time when RTF were at the top of their game, but just to see those four legends back together, playing all that classic material, was just fantastic. And it's a shame we didn't get a new album of new material from the reunion. Would have loved to have heard that. Of course, Al Di Meola would leave once again shortly after, and then Return to Forever became Return to Forever 4 with Jean-Luc Ponty and Frank Gambale from the Electric Band. And they would also record a CD, DVD, a CD of their tour. But, there's no doubt that Return to Forever made a huge impact on the jazz fusion genre, and they went down as one of the greatest and most legendary bands of all time. So there you have it. My favourite Return to Forever album of all time, Romantic Warrior, and a small but very impressive catalogue of one of the most iconic ensembles of all time. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite RTF recording? Is it Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy, No Mystery, Where Have I Known You Before, or is it Romantic Warrior? There's no right or wrong answer. We've all got our favourite albums. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.